everybody, welcome back to another episode. Today we're playing a game called Brickadia. You might have noticed something different. The camera is different. You're right. I thought might as well just use the camera I already have. And also, you guys haven't seen Brickadia, that's also different. I wanted to showcase a couple builds I just recently did because I think it's awesome. It's a piston engine. That's what I want to showcase. This is not it. This is the first version, which I'm not happy about. It sucks. The reason why it's so bad is because the bearings in this game, they take up like 0 space. I didn't account for that, so my bearings were glitched. You can see 0 space in between the bearings. That's what I didn't account for. That's not the one I wanted to show you. Here's version 2. It's a lot more advanced, it's a lot more logic, but don't think about logic, we're gonna get to that later. I've added a couple of metal parts. I don't know if that changes the mass. If it does, it doesn't really matter. It's just, we can adjust the power if we need to. It actually turns over, unlike the first version, that was bad. I also figured out that you can set the speed by using logic, and this thing on the end is just a flywheel using a weight block. I know you can set the weights of blocks, but I just used a weight block because that's the first thing I found. I'm probably going to change that to a disc. If you want to see me building, I can do a second video because I thought of making like a chassis. I'm actually planning on making a car for this engine. I'm probably going to make a video about that. But now, for the logic, we have these comparison gates. They compare greater and less or equal. The inputs for these are just the outputs for the current position. So if the current position is less than a constant value set by these, then it will trigger. And now it doesn't. And now, when it gets greater than the constant value, it will also trigger. But the space in between is not accounted for. It's having toggle logic on this side that toggles it on or off depending on the greater than or the comparison logic. So here's the toggle logic. I've borrowed this from the logic map. Here's how it works. You press the button, or you get a signal, probably Boolean or something, because it needs to detect the edge, and Boolean doesn't, it's either true or false. So Boolean input, edge detector, it detects the edge, so it sends, if it's Boolean, it just sends a short burst. We can say it's 1 tick, because we have ticks and seconds or milliseconds in this game. You'll be using these. That goes into a loop, making this a constant. So that's how the toggle works. So when the engine turns over, reaches the lowest, it turns on, and when it reaches the top again, it turns off. And since we have 4 cylinders, it's a loop, so it will always have power to get the stroke. And I can actually show you guys when it's running, because I have an idle speed currently set. So that's the strings you see here. That's the logic, the idle speed. I have some more logic right here. This is for the RPM, because we needed a way for this engine to ramp up. Instead of having 2 different speed settings like idle and on, I wanted to have a ramping, like a throttle. So that's what I've made right here. The red logic you see here is basically what's the difference between these two. Just turning it on. Just turn on the engine. Just for aesthetics. When we press W, we can see the engine starts ramping up. This slider moves forward, and this dial also moves forward. And when it reaches the end, you can see that it starts jittering, kind of like the RPM gauge on a real car. And that's done with that logic right there. So it detects when it reaches the end and it sends it back. So this is the output or current position, and it goes into this multiplier gate that multiplies it by however much we want the RPM to be when it reaches the top. Because currently it's at 0, and 0 times whatever value we have right here, it's 0. 0 times whatever is 0. And that output is sent into this add gate that adds their idle speed. This is the idle speed. It adds that with the throttle. And that goes into the slider speed. I'm pretty proud of how this works. Yeah, this is actually kind of different because this multiplication gate has to be like a really high value. So if you tried to hook this into that, it wouldn't work. It would just spin. If you were to hook this into the multiplication or add gates, it would just, it would actually probably be worse than the idle speed right now. Because this is the aesthetic logic. So yeah. Yeah, it's actually worse. It turns it off. But since this logic piece doesn't have any parents, I think we can save it. Because that's another problem this game has. If you try to save creations with children, it doesn't really work like that. You can't save builds with joints. I'm going to build a car for this later. I thought about streaming it, but I just think that would be confusing. So I'm going to get this video out first, and then I'm going to build the car, see how that turns out, and record the process. Share it with people you think will like this game, people that like building. I know there's some building YouTubers that do this game. This video was kind of just me yapping, and I apologize, but I just wanted to share this. This is awesome. Or at least in my opinion, this is awesome. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.